So we work on a lot of roles for companies that are a manager position, director position, even some VP roles. Clients asking for the hands-on player coaches that can still code. And you're an anomaly, Richard. You're a CTO who codes, right? You don't see that very often. There's a debate, right? Because the candidate marketplace are like, oh my God, well, if that's what they're asking for, then that's not me, right? I'm a leader. I'm a manager. Like, do they want a manager or do they want a developer? What I find though is whenever I do place someone who's the hands-on player coach in a management role, we'll stay in touch. And then 60, 90 days later, I'll ask them, how much of your day-to-day is coding? How much hands-on are you doing? And they're like, no, you don't understand. This job is 140% management. I don't do any code. I don't have time for coding. So I just get irritated now every time I hear, yeah, we want a hands-on player coach in the management role, because if you want that, you're not necessarily going to get the best leader.
I think it depends. So if that person was literally coding on the product, I think, yeah, they're probably getting overpaid to write code, and it's not going to be the most effective use of their time. I've always read those job descriptions, or at least interpreted them mentally, because maybe I'm putting them through a filter that makes sense to me, of I can sit down with those developers and help them. And that's what I've always done with the developers that I've worked for me. I'm happy to sit down and we'll talk about the design pattern they need to use. I'm still quite good at even look, let me help you debug this. But I'm never going to sit down and write the code because I'd be the world's most expensive programmer. It's just a bad use of company money. So when I read player code, I always hope what the company really means is somebody who's technical enough to sit down with their team and really engage with them technically, rather than, and you will spend 50% of your time actually coding, because I feel like that's probably not ever going to be very efficient.
Think the same thing. But yeah, I mean, it's different. Like if you want somebody who has a coding background, okay, like there's a lot of folks with that background. But if you want someone who is still writing a lot, like lines of code and submitting them into production as of this month, and you're looking for a manager, director, or VP, I don't know. It's just,
Yeah,
it's irritating.
I think as a manager, if you're doing PRs on a regular basis, something maybe is wrong with your org structure if it's a reasonably sized org. But I think it's very useful to have a manager who is capable of still doing those PRs and can still talk that talk in depth. And by the way, your team knows when you're BSing them. They know when you're no longer technically competent. If a lot of your job is doing those PRs, maybe that's not really that management role. But the fact that you're still wholly capable of doing those PRs and would love to if given the opportunity, I think that can actually be quite effective because people will follow someone like that. Knowing that your manager could roll up their sleeves and do your job can be really uplifting rather than crushing if they're a good manager, because that manager also can relate to you, who you are and what you're likely struggling with. And so you can become much more enmeshed in your team and respected by your team.
Yeah, respect.
It can work really well.